Hiya, and welcome back to Adastra. Can't think of anything. Anyways, silence my phone. Forget about that. Anyways, let's just jump right in. It's a few days later when I'm finally able to hang out with Alex like we'd planned. Cassius had stepped up his campaigning over the past several days as his chances of becoming emperor increased. So did Amicus after his decreased. The difference being that Alex often found himself going on campaign trips with the White Wolf while Amicus always left me behind. I think Amicus had picked up on the fact that I don't like being out in front of so many people after the whole dance incident. Still, he promises me that when he wins the next trial, we'll go out to the city to celebrate. For now, I'm happy to stay in the gardens with Alex, enjoying a quiet midday meal as we both talk and sip our tea. Honestly, they should have us redo the dance if your lingua wasn't translating. Was yours? Well, no, but I knew it wouldn't. Wolves never intend for their lyrics to translate over the lingua because it ruins the how, which they see to be the whole point of singing. I could never understand Amicus overlooking that, though. Most wolves never see another sibling species in person in their entire lives. Well, it's over now. On to the debate thing they're going to do next. Oh, yes. Cassius has been training with the best rhetorician of the moon, Marcus Manius. I noticed that he puts a bit of emphasis on the name, and I look over at him. Alex sips at his tea daintily, watching the fountain lazily. He's offered Cassius many tips on convincing the triumvirates. Very useful tips, actually. Is Amicus doing anything similar? I realize then that Alex is offering me information on what Cassius is doing to prepare for the next trial. At least I think he is. Whether that's the case or not, I try to remember the name of the rhetoric guy, knowing I should tell Amicus later. I'm not really sure. He hasn't told me all that much about what he's doing, but hopefully it's something similar. I recommend he study the triumvirates and their cities, if only to find the best way to convince them during the second trial. Yep, definitely offering me information. Thing is, after seeing the way he and Cassius interacted, I wonder if I can fully trust him. You know, Cassius was saying something earlier while I was serving him about a week ago. Did you know he has plans to get rid of the triumvirates? Alex's eyes widened for a moment. Oh, really? I wonder why. Something about it being easier to rule directly rather than through elected officials. Well, that's some radical thinking, isn't it? That's what Virginia said. She's always been rather reasonable. Honestly, Alex leans over, lowering his voice. I'd rather she become the empress, but unfortunately the wolves don't allow females to hold positions of much authority, so her chances at the throne are nil. Alex's eyes suddenly widen as he looks over my shoulder. I raise my eyebrows, then look back to see Neferu making his way toward us. I turn around to see Alex looking down toward the ground, his tail lashing around before he holds it in his lap. The jackal stops to stand in front of us. Without a word, he delicately takes one of Alex's paws and bows low to kiss it. Alex raises his other paw to his mouth, blushing furiously. Meanwhile, Neferu just nods at me. Good day, Alex and Marco. How was your midday meal? Alex still has his paw to his mouth, so I answer for him. It's okay. How are you? Splendid. I notice that he's carrying a bottle in his paw, the glass glinting in the sunlight with his every move. I was just taking a walk through the gardens this morning when I happened across a shockingly large spider that skittered across the ground at my paws. Neferu sweeps his paws in front of himself as if showing where the spider ran. I can't help but wonder if I'm in danger here. Alex finally speaks up, then, squeaking with the first syllable. No, they're rather harmless. Their venom is very mild. Ah, well, that's a relief to hear, Alex. On my home planet, I'd often have to shake my loincloths up before wearing them in case of scorpions. Oh, really? That's terrifying. It certainly can be, but it's something you get used to. Alex and Neferu smile at each other for a moment, and I frown at the cat, wondering what the hell he's doing. Oh yes, I came to give you this. Neferu leans down and holds out the glass bottle, and now I see it's filled with the honey-colored liquid that sloshes lazily in the bottle. The Bunaseed oil I promised. Much better for the fur than the Adastran oils they have for us. Alex reaches out and takes the bottle, blushing again. Thank you, Neferu. I'll use it first thing tomorrow. And I'll see you again tomorrow to make sure you do. The jackal winks, and I think I hear Alex made a strangled noise in his throat. In the meantime, would you like to take a walk with me? Neferu once again extends a paw. Alex coughs awkwardly before reaching out to take it. Wonderful. You're always such great company. Would you like to join us as well, Marco? I think back on what had happened in the baths. No thanks. In that case, I'll see you around the palace. Yeah, see ya, Marco. Neferu offers his arm to the cat, and just like that, they're off into the gardens, disappearing around the many bushes lining the footpaths. I stare after them, a bit confused, still unclear on what exactly the jackal is doing. I'm also reminded that I need to ask Alex about why the hell he told Neferu about my intelligence. The only problem is, I don't know how to do that without seeming suspicious. Technically, there isn't a reason why it's supposed to be secret, and I feel like bringing it up will only give the cat reason to dig more deeply. As I'm wondering all of this, I notice a shape in the bushes, near the ones that Alex and Neferu disappeared behind. Then I see a flash of red and maybe an elbow poking out. What the? Amicus? I yell out in his direction and I see the wolf jump, suddenly coming out from behind his cover. Yes, I was just having a look at the roses. The wolf walks toward me, his paws behind his back. I raise an eyebrow at him. Were you spying on us? Were you trying to avoid Neferu or something? Amicus ignores me this time. How was your day, Marco? Okay. I try to look around the wolf's side at whatever he's hiding behind his back, but he turns accordingly to keep it obscured. What are you doing? Well, Amicus takes a deep breath and I feel myself starting to get nervous. Then he goes down to one knee. Marco, over the past few weeks I've come to enjoy your company immensely. My mouth drops. And over the past few weeks, I've come to realize that we share so much in common in terms of our goals and desires. Amicus gives me a coy smile at that. What do you... So I decided that I should take the next step, to make you feel more welcome and to show you how much I appreciate your kindness and understanding. Wolf suddenly swings his paws to his front, revealing what he'd been hiding. It's a bouquet of purple flowers, lavenders to be exact, along with several smaller white flowers sprinkled into the mix. Marco, will you date me? My heart. I stare at the wolf, still taking in the presentation he'd just given me. My mouth still hangs open and I make a few sounds as I try to form a coherent sentence to respond in my mind. I probably messed that up, huh? Well, hopefully the message came across clearly. What do you think? I'm stunned. And that's... good? Amicus, what is this? I did something wrong, didn't I? Well, I mean, did you mean to do it? The whole thing is crazy, but Amicus's demeanor doesn't really match with the proposal he just made. Did I mean to ask you out on a date? Well, yeah. Did you? Yes. Now the wolf is really fidgeting, tugging at his cape nervously as he lowers the bouquet to hang limply at his side. I have an odd butterflies in the stomach feeling that won't seem to go away. I don't know what it means, but I try to ignore it. The wolf suddenly deflates, looking dejected. Did I pick up the incorrect meaning? I clear my throat, trying to gather my wits. What, do you think dating is? Well, what you told me. It's a relationship status that enables you to become closer, learn more about each other, along with normalizing physical intimacy. Well, he seems to have it down for the most part. The part I'm having trouble with, though, well, people that date also tend to have, I guess, feelings for each other. Well, yes, I have very friendly feelings toward you, and I want to make you more comfortable around me, especially when it comes to physical intimacy. Isn't that the point of dating? I swear to God, I'm getting like Sheldon Cooper vibes from him. I sigh, realizing I hadn't explained it well enough, but then I hadn't realized that Amicus was planning to do this either. Well, usually people don't do it unless they love each other. My voice gets quieter and quieter over the course of the sentence, until Amicus has to poke his ears forward to hear me. Love? Yeah? Oh. Amicus stands there a moment before the insides of his ears turn bright red. You said it was casual. Wolf raises his voice, the sudden increase in volume making me jump. Well, it is. I mean, you don't necessarily have to be in love to date, but the intention is usually to find love. Dear gods, was your intention just to humiliate me after the dance? What the hell were you talking about? How was I supposed to know you were planning this? I think me asking those questions have made it fairly obvious. You assume way too much. Clearly. The wolf tosses the bouquet to the side, letting it land on the bench before it rolls off to the ground. Amicus slumps onto the bench next to me, his ears still red. I let him grumble to himself for a minute or two, wanting to let him cool off from the initial embarrassment. Then I reach up to rest a hand on his broad shoulder. Sorry, I didn't mean to embarrass you. Besides, how are you supposed to know? It's an earth thing. Amicus waves a paw. It's fine. Like you said, I assume too much. I lean over to pick up the bouquet, seeing how the flowers just kind of look bunched together. You make this yourself? Well, yes. The garden has many flowers. It smells like you. Yes. It looks good. Thank you. We sit there for a few more moments as I pretend to examine all the flowers in the bouquet. So, it's either friendship or love with humans. No physical intimacy unless you're bound to fall in love? What do you mean? Like this dating culture you have. You were interested in giving me that sexual favor. Does that mean you're also interested in love with me as well? I blush. Well, not exactly. Didn't you say dating allows for more intimacy, but dating is also meant to look for love? I sigh and set the bouquet aside. Things are changing, becoming more casual. I say the word carefully, and Amicus snorts. But I guess the term you might be looking for is friends with benefits. Benefits? Friends that have sex, basically. Ah, I see. We haven't done that, though. No, but I'm not going to make you date me just to get a hand job. Amicus scratches his head before looking away again. Once again, I find myself feeling bad for him. Listen, if we weren't having this whole, I lower my voice, illegal space adventure, I might say yes. What, really? I said might. Oh, really? I think you're missing a key word there. I think I understand. I find myself turning red again, wishing I'd just kept my mouth shut. Well, maybe I might as well. Well, you already asked, without knowing the full meaning. I try to think of something else to change the subject, knowing that my blush is as clear as day to the wolf and that he's very much enjoying it. Anyway, Alexios told me that Cassius was training under a rhetoric person, Marcus Manlius or something. Amicus suddenly frowns. Marcus Manius? Really? I think that's what he said. Damn. Amicus's tone is that of awe. Is that bad? It's simply surprising. He's the most famous Adastran rhetorician there is. Should I be worried? No. In fact, now that you've told me, I'm in much better shape. I now have an idea of what style he might use, so that will make it easier to counter his points. If you're sure. Of course. I'll come to my room to help me practice, just to make extra certain I'll win. We get up and walk back to the palace through the gardens, leaving the bouquet of flowers behind on the bench. Amicus seems to have gotten over his embarrassment about the whole incident pretty quickly. It's just like him to be able to do that, actually. In fact, we're laughing and talking just as easily as we always have. The wolf nudging me every few steps to punctuate something he says, each one causing me to stumble. Anyway, Cass tends to stutter over his words in front of large crowds. Not much a rhetorician can do about that. The wolf reaches out a paw, pressing it to the black square. Besides, what exactly is he? Amicus and I stare in surprise as Cassius stares back at us with what looks like even more surprise. Then his eyes narrow. Excuse me? He tries to move around us, but Amicus blocks his way, growling. What the hell are you doing in here, Cassius? Amicus seems to reserve his actual yelling only for Cassius, so it makes me jump when I hear it. Cassius collects himself quickly despite Amicus's intimidating snarls. Not much of your business, is it? If you're in my room, then it is my business. What are you doing? Wolf starts to advance on Cassius, stopping just feet away. Move, Amicus, otherwise I'm calling Cato. Amicus eyes Cassius closely, then finally pulls back, folding his arms. Stooping around to find something that might give you a chance in the trial, I can tell you now that you'll be coming up short. Obviously, you've nothing to offer to help me win. Then why come here? Cassius ignores the other wolf, walking past Amicus before passing by me. He turns then. And I shouldn't be worried about the pitiable display you and your pet put on. He turns to me, and I can't help but frown at him. As stupid as he is ugly. I know that Cassius is just trying to get under Amicus's skin. He knows that he cares about me. But as Cassius reaches out to brush my chin with a paw, I can't stop myself from batting it away. Cassius's eyes widen then, and I see his paw draw back. I flinch, but immediately Amicus is there, reaching out to grab Cassius by his cape. The smaller wolf is pulled back from me, but Amicus doesn't stop there. As Cassius stumbles past Amicus, the bigger wolf swings his paw, smacking Amicus square in the nose. Cassius immediately goes down on his ass, at which point I hear another sound. Amicus and I stare down at the smaller wolf as he sits there, stunned. Then he suddenly scrambles up to his feet, a paw to his rear. Amicus, you bastard! Tail-raising lover of ass! I take a step back as Cassius practically sprays blood from his mouth. Amicus pulls me to his side, eyes narrowed, but I can feel his heart hammering against my shoulder. I'll throw you both in the dungeon for that. I'll have him executed when I'm emperor. I see tears start to spill out of Cassius's eyes before he turns and stumbles out of the room, his tail hanging limply to the side. Amicus and I stand there for a long time after he leaves, the silence almost oppressive after the loud fight. A few minutes later, Amicus is flat on his stomach, looking under his bed as he mumbles something under his breath. I stand awkwardly off to the side, watching as he sweeps a paw underneath as if feeling for something. What are you doing? Amicus grunts as he gets to his knees, then stands up, looking to the ceiling as he turns in a slow circle. Looking for whatever Cass might have been doing. You know what he was doing? I have my suspicions, which are... Amicus stops his turning and looks at me, folding his arms. Well, I'm not sure, but a recording device possibly. Or he was just snooping for information. Can we just ask Calm? No. His capabilities are very limited despite what his intelligence might suggest. He doesn't record our activities specifically so we can't spy on each other. Rules put in place millennia ago. I sigh and look at the door, still feeling a little shaken up at what had just happened. Why can't you lock the door or something? Amicus shrugs. That's something only the Emperor can do. Again, rules that have been in place for a very long time. That doesn't seem safe. Well, only the most trusted are allowed in the palace after all, which tends to only be family. Aside from Neferu. Aside from him, yes. You don't have much freedom for being the Emperor's son. You just noticed? Amicus huffs and stands in the middle of the room, his arms folded, a deep frown on his face. He was probably just trying to find out what you're planning for the next trial. We know some stuff about him already. Amicus continues to look concerned. What is it? Amicus lowers his voice. I worry it might have something to do with you. After what he said as he was leaving, it's left me uneasy is all. Oh yeah, the thing about executing me. I haven't had time to think about the possibility of someone on the verge of near absolute power wanting me dead yet. Do you think he was serious? Amicus is quiet for a moment. No, but obviously I'm not going to assume he wasn't. I won't even give him a chance at the emperorship now. I frown. And you were going to before? No. I'm just going to make extra sure now. I'm quiet, deciding to sit on the bed instead. I don't like that the situation has become a lot more serious than it already was. After a moment, Amicus comes to sit next to me, the depression he creates in the mattress forcing me to lean sideways into him. He wraps an arm around me. Don't worry about it. He has no chance, and besides, I wouldn't let him touch you. How would you be able to do that if he's the Emperor, though? Well, I'm also his older brother. Some relationships don't change, even if the official ones do. I stay quiet, unconvinced. Anyway, it would look awfully bad on his record. He just let his anger get the best of him. He'll quickly forget about the matter within the next trial coming up. Amicus squeezes me. And this is all assuming he'd win. He won't. That's what you said last time. And we had an unforeseeable mishap last time. There isn't much possibility for one of those to happen in this trial. We sit there a while longer, Amicus rubbing my shoulder with his paw. Despite my rising anxiety, it's comforting, and before long I'm leaning my head against his shoulder. A week later, Amicus and I sit in the gardens, enjoying the cool, fresh morning air. So what's your main argument? that Adastra has been on a steady rise politically and economically since the beginning of the Adastra policy era. Why take steps backwards when we're so clearly moving in the right direction? And Cassius? That Adastra's decline over the past few hundred years is due to that policy. Instead of looking outward to the children and other siblings, we should instead be looking inward to better ourselves. Amicus scratches his nose. Well, that's the basics anyway. Obviously, there is much, much more to it. So how are you going to counter that argument? Seems like a pretty good one to me. If the wheel of your chariot is caught on a stone, does that mean the campaign should be turned? Does that mean that the campaign should be turned around and ended? He looks at me, and I just stare back. Well, the answer is no. You simply need to give it a push. In other words, the downturn over the past 200 years is simply a stone in the road. Why throw away 10 millennia of progress due to a few centuries of light hardship? Besides, it was completely predictable. The war with the Chemians and the resulting end of diplomatic relations with most of the other siblings caused it. We certainly can't have any leverage in the galaxy when the only siblings speaking to us are the cats. If we can fix those relations, we could be well on our way to prosperity again. Well, that and unstunting your children. Yes, that too. Which I still can't believe you did. Again, it wasn't me. Anyway, that will also be part of my argument. Upraise the children fully as the partial uplift programs are now clearly a failure. And end the slavery. And consider the debts repaid, yes. Debts that didn't exist in the first place, sure. Listen, Marco, I have to use very careful language so as not to upset the people, not to mention the triumvirates. Feelings are sensitive at times like these and must be considered despite how tedious or untrue it can be. Amicus is right. Wolves are very sensitive when it comes to their culture and history. Starting to realize that their hubris is probably their biggest downfall. I lean back on the bench, starting to feel a little sweaty under the rising sun. Isn't that going to be Cassius's whole thing, though? Appeal to their feelings, throw out the etiquette, and get straight to the point? Possibly. But I'm confident my composure and consideration will win over the triumvirates. You ever considered not being so confident, maybe preparing for the worst? I'm confident that I'm prepared for the worst. I roll my eyes and Amicus glares at me. I don't understand why you're so insistent on projecting yourself onto me. Just because you aren't sure of yourself doesn't mean that I should be the same. I frown. Ouch. Sorry, but I strongly believe in what I'm doing. How can I ever be an emperor if I'm not sure what I'm doing is right? Sure, but all I'm saying is that you might not always be right, and you need to be prepared for that. Trust me, I'm learning as I go, and after the last trial, I'm preparing for everything. How are they even going to choose the winner? Wouldn't they just pick whoever they agree with most? Technically, no. They're supposed to choose the best performance, the most convincing and dramatic. How very wolven. So you just have to convince a majority of the triumvirates. Well, yes, but Cato's vote holds twice the power of a triumvirate vote, so I need at least either 4 triumvirates or 2 triumvirates plus Cato. And what are Cato's beliefs? Amicus shrugs. He doesn't talk about them much, but again, it shouldn't matter. He's certainly right about Cato not talking much about himself, but that tends to be the way everyone is around here. I can tell Amicus isn't all that interested in talking about this, though, so I try to think of something else. What started the war with the Chemians, by the way? Their ambitions got the best of them. They began to interact with some of our abandoned children, some of which were very close to Adastra. Oh, is that illegal or something? Well, technically not if they're abandoned, but it's never really happened considering if a species is abandoned, and that's a signal to the other siblings that the race is unupliftable. So they weren't breaking any rules. Even if they weren't breaking laws, they were clearly provoking us by uplifting races just a few hundred light years away from our moon. They are an arrogant people. Neferu seems nice, always polite. Amicus smirks. Well, that's how they often get their way. A facade of niceties to pull you into their trap. Either way, the war was a draw despite their technical advantage. Wolven tenacity beats Chemian tech any day. Despite Amicus's more progressive views on things, he's not immune to Wolven hubris either, it seems. But I'm not in the mood to argue with him about that. You know, Neferu reminds me of a culture on Earth. The Egyptians. I wonder if they uplifted there too. Amicus looks down at me, then snorts. More likely, they just share simple aesthetics. Your people being uplifted twice while having no knowledge of the Galaxias is impossible. The Chemians rarely abandon anyway. Actually, I don't think they ever have. They tend to have the best of luck. Amicus stretches. Honestly, though, this talk is boring. This is my only day off before the trial next week. We should be doing something fun. Like what? Amicus looks around, then grins. Want to practice Pugnu with me? No. Aw, come on. I know Amicus would go easy on me, but I really don't feel like getting sweaty and exhausted right now. Why don't we just go to the island and have a picnic again? Oh, yeah, great idea. Big dumb man. Water. Amicus grins and hops up, already making his way to the beach as he calls out to Calm to get the food ready. With a sigh, I get up and jog after him toward the sightseer. I stand on the beach, hands on my hips as I look out at the sparkling lake, the breeze that's coming off the water cool and soothing. Adastra City sparkles in the distance as well, making the tall structures look like they have a glass or crystal coating. I look back at Amicus, the wolf in the process of spreading out a blanket under the shade of the trees. You sure Cato isn't going to kick your ass for doing this time? I see the wolf's ears flick down for a moment. That was for missing an appointment. I don't have any today. I resist telling Amicus that it was about much more than a missed lesson, and instead I walk over to help him spread the blanket out more evenly. Thank you. Now, shall we eat? Amicus pulls the cloth off the basket, revealing tightly packed covered plates, along with bottles of wine and verdi. This time, the food is a selection of wraps full of meat and cheeses, along with chilled salted cucumbers. That actually sounds pretty good. Amicus plays out in that luxurious Roman way as he pulls his plate of food up next to his chest, immediately stuffing a whole wrap in his muzzle. I'm a bit more dainty, instead sitting next to the wolf cross-legged as I nibble at my own wrap. We eat in silence for a little while, Amicus gobbling up the majority of the food like always. I notice the wolf drinking more wine than he usually does, probably because it's his day off. After taking a particularly large swig, he points at my legs. I don't know how you're comfortable doing that. Looks like hell on the knees. Well, laying down like you are actually hurts my neck. I don't know how you do it for so long. I rub the left side of my neck as I say that, then carefully uncork the bottle of verdi. Cato's the same way, but he's old. I take a sip of the cold drink that I've come to really like over the past few weeks. Speaking of Cato, who exactly is he? How'd he become the acting emperor? I try circling us back around to the conversation we'd had earlier, wanting to know more about the wolf that's apparently ruling all of Adastra right now. Oh, well, he was father's friend since childhood. He was the imperial legate during the Chemian War. Is that an important position? It's the highest rank in the military, aside from the emperor, of course. He's credited with preventing outright defeat. Huh, must be kind of weird for him to have Furry walking around in the palace. Another reason I wonder why Virginia brought him to the palace. Cato's scars aren't just physical. Physical? I take it you've noticed the visor, yes? Well, he lost an eye and part of his skull during the war. Eventually, the other eye failed as well, and he had to go to our parent to have mechanical vision installed. Anyway, Nefero was born decades after the war, so I doubt Cato holds anything against him specifically. Is he alright with the alliance thing? Knowing this about Cato makes me worry that he might not agree with Amicus on one of his most controversial policies. I doubt that, but I think he understands it's necessary if we're to begin re-establishing relations with the other siblings. I feel my stomach turn a little as I realize we might be disadvantaged in this trial as well. Amicus, what's going to happen if you lose this next trial? Again, don't worry. I know you don't think it can happen, but if it does, what happens to me? Amicus frowns at me, a meat wrap halfway to his face before he sets it back down. First of all, I won't have you worrying about Cassius's words. What he said was out of anger, and besides, I'll have measures in place to stop it from ever happening. What measures? I'm not fully sure of that yet, but I will have them in place by the time the next trial comes. With very good measures. Talk about the measures. They're very good. And aside from that, what do I do next? Amicus thinks. Like I said before, I'll ensure a way home for you. The problem is the illegality of you being here. The more people who know about it, the more likely a monitor may be alerted to what happened. I need to be very careful about who I let know about the situation. Okay. I look down at my food, suddenly having lost my appetite. Amicus sighs, sounding annoyed. Come on, Marco, this is likely going to be your last few weeks here. Stop focusing so much on what's unlikely to happen. Let's enjoy ourselves a little bit. The wolf suddenly sits up, brushing the crumbs off his fur before swigging down more wine. Come on, let's practice combat. What? I said I don't want to do that. Well, since you're so worried about Cassius, I'll teach you a few tricks to take him down. Take him down? Well, I don't trust him to keep his paws to himself now, so if he ever tries to take advantage of you while I'm not around, you can at least hold him off long enough to get away. Yeah, and that won't make everything worse? Well, after what happened a few days ago, I suppose it can't get much worse. I slowly get to my feet, straightening out my robes. I'm not so sure about that. Besides, we just ate. Amicus laughs. It's not like you're Cato. I think I'll be able to keep my food and drink down. What about me? I'm not going to hit you or anything. Amicus squares his stance, standing in the sand off to the side of the blanket, still in the shade. I sigh, recognizing that Amicus is in one of those moods where it's hard to talk him out of doing something. I walk over to stand in front of the wolf, my arms folded. And about Cato, I could probably beat him in a fair fight. He just caught me by surprise that last time. I pause, then raise an eyebrow. What do you mean? I mean, he started fighting no holds barred without warning. I'd have given him the business if I'd known he were going to do that. Hey, I don't think of you any less for losing a fight. To an old man. Amicus furrows his brow, the way he does when he's realizing that I'm teasing him. I'm serious. So am I. I mean, you almost had me that one time in the spaceship. You're a real force to be reckoned with. It's not smart to tease a wolf before a fight, human. I'm not teasing. And kicking an unsuspecting man in the balls isn't exactly a win in my book. It is in mine. Clearly. Speaking of which, Amicus suddenly steps forward, thrusting his knee up at my crotch. Oh my god. I can only watch in horror as it comes up fast, stopping just an inch from my groin. We both stand there for a moment before I gasp and stumble back, holding my nuts even though Amicus didn't make contact. What the hell? If you don't want Cassius to hold broken bones against you, go for the genitals. That should be enough to stun him. This goes for anyone else who might try to attack you. Annoyed, I make as if to do the same to Amicus, but he's already blocking. Haha, yes, like that. Though try to be a little more subtle. You telegraph your moves far too much. I stop struggling with the wolf, breathing heavily. Fine. And as Amicus starts to drop his guard, I try to swat him in the crotch. He snatches my hand immediately. Better, Marco. We should probably try something harder than a flowery slap. I try to shove the wolf away, but he steps to the side, and gives me a shove as well. I trip over something, and it's not until I'm on my ass that I realize he'd stuck his foot out behind me. I look up at Amicus as he stands over me, the expression on his face showing me that he's trying very hard not to laugh. Tangle up his feet, and you should be able to send him to the ground, fairly easily. If he breaks any of his bones from the fall, then at least he can't say you did it intentionally. Amicus reaches down with a paw to help me up. I take it and he pulls me up easily, almost lifting me off my feet. This is great and all, but I don't see how this is going to help me. I wasn't even the one that broke his tail, and he wanted me killed. Again, with me standing in his way, he won't ever get the chance to try anything, if he even intends to. This is only to give you a chance to get away from him. Amicus brushes the sand off my robes. Besides, this is useful in any situation, not just for Cassius. Amicus chokes on his last syllable as I ram my shoulder into him, grabbing his leg to try and trip him up, kind of like I saw Cato do to him in the amphitheater. Obviously, someone as small as me going up against a hulking wolf like Amicus is bound to fail, but the wolf does stumble back a few steps. Hey! Amicus chuckles and I feel him let himself fall backwards to the sand. It reminds me of the last time we'd wrestled on the beach, except now I end up on top with my fall cushioned by his body. my face bouncing against his massive chest. Amicus grins at me. Oof, not bad, not bad. With a little more force, you might be able to knock down someone as small as Amicus. You might be able to knock down someone as small as Cassius. I pin the wolf down, my hands on his shoulders. Oh please, I knocked you down fair and square! This time I'm the one to yelp on my last syllable, Amicus easily reversing our positions as he rolls us both over. I find myself staring up at the wolf, his massive paws on my shoulders, his knees spread to either side of my thighs as he's careful not to rest his weight on top of me. He grins down on me, chest heaving for breath as his tongue dangles out his muzzle a bit, the way it sometimes does when he's buzzed, giving his grin a dopey quality. He's hunched over me to the point where his tongue almost touches my nose. Although I try to keep my face in a scowl, I can't stop the smile from coming through, and pretty soon I'm laughing a little. I'm about to tell Amicus that this whole thing is hardly fair when he leans down fully, pressing his lips to mine in a kiss. My heart. My big gay heart. I gasp in surprise, but it's through my nose as my mouth is sealed to his. My eyes are wide, his closed as he presses harder against my lips. As he bent over me, his paws left my shoulders to instead hold my head steady, one paw against my cheek, the other cupped around my head, his whole body huddling over my face. I don't move, not hugging back, but not turning away either. Instead, I just lay there as I feel my heart skip a beat, the feeling of the big, strong wolf crouched over me, kissing me, and sending a thrill from my chest down to my crotch. The wolf's broad, cold nose twitches against mine before a hot huff of breath escapes it and washes over my face. At the same time, Amicus slowly rolls off me, our lips parting just as quickly as they'd connected as he flops to the side on his back, mirroring my spread eagle position. We lay there next to each other, my heart hammering as I listen to the wolf breathing heavily next to me. Aside from that, the only other sound are the waves washing up against the shore a few dozen yards away. A few minutes pass in silence as I wait for the wolf to say something. He doesn't, and finally it gets to the point where I have to say something. So... Amicus responds instantly with an innocent, inquisitive grunt. What was that? That? Oh, the kiss? Yeah. Just thought I'd owed it to you after Mira. I botched it during the performance after all. The wolf sounds distant, distracted, like he's not paying attention to me. I finally prop myself up on an elbow, looking directly at Amicus now. Really? Like a child, Amicus looks away toward the lake, not saying anything. I wait a while longer, giving him the chance to respond, a chance he doesn't take. I sigh. Talk to me. What is there to say? I frown. A lot. I'm kind of confused, honestly. A big huffing sigh, then... I like you, Marco. Quite a bit, in fact. I know. I like you, too. We technically confessed our feelings to each other when Amicus asked me on that date, but only technically. Were you drunk? Maybe a little, but I knew what I was doing. More silence. Amicus... Could you look at me? Amicus's ears go flat, then he slowly turns his head toward me, but his eyes are down, looking at my chest rather than my face. I think about making a my eyes are up here joke, but I know it'll fall flat with him. Listen, we've already sort of talked about this. The problem is the situation we're in. It makes the whole dating thing impossible. I see Amicus smile at the word, then frown again. I know, but if we feel the same, why not be a little closer? I know you'll have to leave soon, but that doesn't mean we can't enjoy the time we have together. Sure, but I think that'll make saying goodbye a little harder, don't you? Maybe. But we'll find a way to see each other again. What he's saying makes sense, but this whole situation has red flags all over it. Having feelings for my abductor in a situation that's completely illegal is so wrong in so many ways. But it's Stockholm Syndrome. Amicus is talking about it like it could be an innocent fling, but this feels like more than that. The wolf had the same dejected look he'd worn when he came out to me a few weeks ago. So I reach out a hand and rest it in his paw. He looks at me then, ears still low, but his expression hopeful. Everything's just so messed up and complicated. Yes, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have kissed you. Maybe not. I swallow. But I liked it. Amicus snaps his eyes back up to look at me. Really? Yeah. The wolf lets out a huge sigh of relief. You didn't kiss back, though. It worried me that I'd made a mistake once again. I was surprised is all. And what do you mean, once again? The wolf seems to contemplate something, then turns on his side too, finally facing me. About 5 years ago, I shared my first kiss with another male. Oh? At the time, there were rumors that I'd performed poorly with the female my father had arranged me to be with. Oh. Amicus's ears turn red. Anyway, so this male approaches me during the summer festival. He was the son of one of the triumvirs from Trocelli. He made it very clear what he wanted from me. He kissed me on the balcony while a covert drone recorded the exchange. It was broadcast on the information channels the next day. I frown. Why? Amicus shrugs, looking down at the sand. The triumvir had a past grievance with my father. He used mine and his own son's sexual preferences to get back at him. What happened then? Well, father used his power to shut down the networks along with banishing the triumvir and his family to Anchorus. Amicus nods up at the sky where Anchorus looms monolithically in its faded, chalky gray. It was an unpopular decision, but father felt it had to be done. Obviously, it's left me a bit worried about kissing and pursuing other men. I squeeze his paw. Well, you don't have to worry about that with me. Obviously, I don't know anyone here, and I'm trying to stay out of other people's business as much as possible. I know. Amicus squeezes back. I'm still sorry, though. I shouldn't have asked or not done it. You're fine. Another stretch of silence, and I get the feeling that Amicus is waiting for an answer, which he confirms with what he says next. So if you're fine with it, did you want to date me? Amicus says the foreign word very carefully, and for a moment the lingua skips a beat in its steady translation, allowing him to speak the word unfiltered. It's still his voice, but the heavy accent that comes through is surprising, even a little sexy. I know I should say no, though, the red flags fluttering ominously around our precarious, even dangerous situation. I'll think about it over the next few days, then let you know. Amicus smiles a little. Okay. But you need to be focusing on the trial, so no thinking about this while I'm deciding. Of course. I grin inwardly as I realize I've just added another distraction to the wolf's goal of becoming emperor. You promise this won't distract you? Definitely not. I give the wolf a look of disbelief, and he responds with a glare. Marco, I've wanted this my entire life. I know it might not have seemed like it earlier, but I'm taking this very, very seriously. And I won't be a distraction? Of course not. In fact, I think it would be rather positive for me to know that you return my feelings to some degree. It gives me even more confidence. Oh God, no. Hey. Amicus sits upon my shoulder, and it looks like he wants to lean in and kiss me again, but he doesn't. Thank you for understanding and for putting up with me. I have a good feeling about, well, everything now. I don't know how much I agree, considering our situation is causing us so many problems, but I set my hand on his paw anyway. Sure. Our relationship after that conversation is strange, to say the least. While it felt meaningful at the time, I realized later that we didn't really get anywhere except once again and admit to the feelings we'd been having over the past few weeks. Amicus is extra careful about touching me now, probably because he doesn't want me to misconstrue it for something more than it is. At the same time, our conversations have become less casual and joking, more stiff and awkward. I hate it. In any other situation, I just want to sit down and talk my feelings out with the person, but Amicus is different. First of all, he's an alien, and having the feelings that I do for an alien, a wolf alien at that, is weird. Secondly, this relationship, this closeness, it's just not important in the grand scheme of things. We're currently doing something so illegal that if it were to be found out, it would bring the entire empire to a standstill, at least more than it already is. So instead, I've been playing out one of the cheesy woven romance dramas I've seen on Adastra television. Maybe instead I should be focusing on how the hell I'm going to exist in this empire, especially if the second trial falls through. But Amicus wants a relationship with me. That much he's made clear. I just wonder if it truly would help him like he says it will, or if he's just saying that so I'll give him what he wants. I don't doubt that the wolf likes me, maybe even more than that, but we've only known each other for about a month. Do we really even know anything about each other? Despite all of this, and after a few days of thinking about it, I start to warm up to the idea. We both know it'll be a short. We both know it'll be short, an innocent fling, like I thought of it earlier. I could be leaving for Earth any time in the next month, but I can't deny that I really like him too. An innocent fling. The more I say it in my head, the better it sounds. Despite everything, knowing that I could have a relationship with an alien, the son of an emperor actually, someone who will likely become the emperor, it's kind of cool. Besides, he did say it would help him with his confidence for the trial. And finally, I'm tired of this awkwardness between us. Amicus is my friend, and I want to be able to talk normally with him again. I'm pretty sure making things official will clear everything up. I just have to go about doing it the right way. Oh no. The day before the trial, Amicus shoos me and Alex out into the gardens. It's strange, but he tells us that they need to be tended to, considering that the camera drones are going to sweep over the grounds for an opening shot before the second trial begins. It's the first time he's ever really asked me to do a task, and when I point that out to him, he says that he also needs time alone to practice his speech. That makes sense, but it's still a little odd. Alex and I stand in the gardens picking up the weeds just like I had on my first day at the palace. It's hard to believe a month's gone by, even with the 19-hour days. I guess it's been about 3 weeks in Earth time. I get to work pulling up the small white flowers, the ones that seem to grow in every crevice of the garden. You'd think the drones would be smart enough to take care of the weeds themselves. Well, they don't have appendages to work with. All they could really do is use their high-powered lasers, but that risks starting fires. Drones have lasers? Oh, yes. They need some form of defense mechanism. Huh. I mean, it's not like they'd ever use it on you. Even if they did, it's not enough to kill you. At least not quickly. Just leaves nasty burns. I find myself continuing to glance up at an Adastran spider sitting motionlessly on the wall of the palace. Wish they'd use them on those hideous things. Takes Alex a moment to see what I'm looking at. Oh, Marco, you know those are important for the ecosystem? Yeah, I know. Doesn't make them any less disgusting. Imagine one of those things biting you. Indeed. Though honestly, I've been vaccinated so many times after coming to Adastra that sharp pointy things don't scare me so much anymore. We work quietly for a few more minutes, Alex lazily humming as I try to think of a way to bring something up that I'd wanted to ask about with the cat. So? I watch as Alex's paws work fast, plucking the weeds with speed and precision. What's your relationship with Cassius like? I see Alex's paws freeze for a moment, then quickly return to their work, the dirty pile of weeds next to him growing larger and larger on the marble floor. Our relationship? You already know that, Marco. I'm his pet. Just like you are Amicus's pet. He smiles at me. At this point, I decide to stop letting the cat play his little game with me. I give him a look that says, "Oh, come on," and his ears fall a bit. What? You know exactly what. I think it's pretty obvious the two of you are, I don't know, something more. This is the first time I've called the cat out on his polite pet facade, and I see that it's thrown him off a bit. His ears are down, and he's staring hard at his paws, pushing through the weeds, though he's no longer plucking them. That's such a forward question, Marco. I wonder if his demeanor just has to do with this cat modesty, or if there are actual laws against pet-master relationships. Come on, we're friends. Besides, I want some advice. Now his ears perk up a bit. Oh? With what? Well, first I want to know if, something's going on between you and Cassius. Then I'll know if you can answer. Alex sighs huffily, then sits back on his rear, looking a bit childish with his legs and feet splayed out in front of himself. I don't know why it matters. Well, I don't know how things are on Amorpha, but where I'm from, friends talk about their relationships with each other. It's actually strange not to tell your friend about who you're in a relationship with. Though his ears are folded down, I can see how red they are. We're not in an official relationship, but there are feelings between us, yes. Really? Alex snaps his gaze to mine. Why do you sound so surprised? I'm not surprised, just fascinated. I'm not. You two are just really different. How so? I mean, do I have to explain it? Alex is quiet. Well, you're so reserved and quiet, and he's so... Now that I know Alex actually likes Cassius, I don't want to be too offensive. Cassius. Alex sighs. Yes, Cassius is very Cassius. But there's a lot more to him than what he puts out in public. So you like him? Parts of him, yes. Alex has lowered his voice to the point where I almost can't hear him, so I do the same. So are you like in a relationship? I don't know what they're called on Adastra. Alex bristles. Well, it is simply called a relationship. The only official status is marriage, but that's only between males and females. What about between males? There is none. Why are you so curious? Alex looks at me carefully, eyes narrowed. I shrug. Just wondering. I like to learn about the culture I'm in. I see. Are you interested in Amicus? Now it's my turn to blush. No! Marco, you can tell me. I thought we were friends. I get the feeling that Alex is a lot better at me than at these games. I don't know, honestly. I guess I was just wondering how I'd go about it if I decided to. Aw, that's adorable. All I can do in response is blush a deeper shade of red. So you're asking me how to tell a wolf that you're interested? Yeah. Well, between males, it usually happens naturally, without saying so. If you hadn't even noticed, there's a stigma against same-sex relationships on Adastra. Leaving the status of a relationship unsaid makes it less likely that you'll be found out. I think for a moment. Amicus seems to want me to make the relationship official. I guess he's just going by my standards then. He probably wants me to ask him to date me, Earth style. Alex goes back to plucking some of the weeds. Honestly, however, I feel that things are changing, though very slowly. Honestly, someone like Amicus becoming Emperor would be really something. I'm about to ask Alex how prominent the rumors are about Amicus when I suddenly hear footsteps. I look up, half expecting to see the wolf, but instead, Cato simply stares at us, his paws behind his back as usual. A moment of silence goes by before Alex suddenly stumbles to his feet, paws clasped in front of himself before bowing low. I quickly follow suit, a few seconds behind the cat. As I bow, I notice how dirty my robe is at the knees. Alex remains bowed, so I do the same, listening as Cato's footsteps come closer. He stops a few feet away, and I see his worn, blunt claws at the top of my vision. He stands there for a very long time, not saying anything, forcing me and Alex to remain stooped. As my back starts to ache, I realize that he must be doing this on purpose. Are we in trouble for something? Finally, he speaks, and I almost jump. Alexios, Marco, how are you this afternoon? Alex straightens up, and I do the same, stifling my groan of relief. If Alex is sore, he's not showing it at all, as he fixes a smile on his face. Wonderful, Your Imperial Majesty. I hope the same is for you? I open my mouth, trying to think of something to say, though Alex didn't leave me much room to do so. That doesn't seem to matter, though, as Cato starts speaking, reminding me that I'm still supposed to be a near-mute primitive. Sadly, no, Alexios. I was just in the city today, and I was hearing some unfortunate rumors amongst the officials. Another long pause. Uh-oh? The corner of Cato's mouth twitches, and while I usually have a hard time knowing what the old wolf is thinking, I can tell that right now he's not happy. Indeed, rumors about Cassius and his intentions involving the triumvirates if he becomes emperor. It takes me a moment to know what they're talking about. Then I remember. The triumvirates? I wonder why. Alex puts on a very innocent, confused look, even though I know that he knows what this is about. I wonder as well, which is why I'm curious to know if either of you have heard the rumor, or possibly the source of the rumor. Immediately, I feel sweat starting to break out on my forehead, and I'm glad that I'm already sweating from the heat. I am sorry to say that I do not know, Your Imperial Majesty. Another moment of silence goes by, and that's when I notice that Cato's waiting for me to answer. I choke on my oars for a moment, adjusting my brain to dumb ape mode. What is Trimvrites? Cato's mouth twitches again. Anyway, I'm on my way to Cassius's room to let him know the news. Please accompany me, Alexios. Yes, Emperor. Alex quickly hops to attention as Cato turns with a twirl of his robes, heading back up the path as Alex quickly follows. I'm left to stand there alone for a moment, watching the two of them disappear amongst the bushes. So, someone had told some of the officials about Cassius's plans to eliminate the triumvirates. Despite Alex's innocent act, I assume it had to be him. Either that, or it was Virginia. I wonder if Cato is already suspicious about Alex, and if that's the case, it could all come back to me. Let me check something. Sorry, it's like once again the mod. Because like I'm like so scared that something will go horribly wrong. Yeah, we should be good. I wonder if Kato is already suspicious about Alex, and if that's the case, it could all come back to me. I hope not. The idea of playing politics among these passive-aggressive wolves is not at all appealing. I spend a few more hours weeding the gardens on my own, knowing that I won't be able to make much progress alone. After a while, I meander around the gardens a bit, wanting to go back inside but not really wanting to bother Amicus while he studies. While I'm doing that, though, I think more and more about what Alex and I had been talking about. Should I just confess my feelings to Amicus and close the awkward gap between us? I know it's weighing on his mind. Maybe asking him out will give him the boost that he needs to win. Maybe I'm just trying to convince myself, but I realize that it is something that I want to do. And if I'm going to do it, it's probably best to do it before the trial, to set his mind at ease. Carefully, I pick a few flowers from the garden, not making the giant bouquet that Amicus had made for his own proposal, but enough to look nice, at least in my opinion. As I walk to the wolf's wolf's room, I have enough time to second guess myself. Maybe this isn't such a good idea. My heart is hammering in my chest as I approach the wolf's door, and I'm sure my face is bright red. I try to keep my breathing under control as I stand in front of the door. What should I say? Maybe just imitate what the wolf did back when he asked me out. Yeah, that'll be funny and cute, right? As I start to feel myself getting cold feet, I just reach up to the panel, pressing it, deciding to just throw myself into this. Moment of truth. Oh, thank God. The scene that I come upon is probably the last one I would have ever expected. At first, I think the two of them are fighting. Neferu and Amicus obviously have some kind of tension going on between them, so seeing the jackal splayed out on the bed while Amicus growled and snarled above him, pinning him down, well, a fight is all that would come to my mind. But after a few seconds of staring open-mouthed at the scene in front of me, I slowly realize what's actually happening. I must look like an idiot. My robe dirty from the gardens, flowers dangling from my right hand, my mouth hanging open in fascinated horror. Amicus looks most shocked of all, though, and I can see a million thoughts running through his head, clearly not having wanted me to see this. His reasons for sending me and Alex out to do menial yard work is very clear now. Neferu, for his part, isn't wearing his usual suave smirk. Instead, it's surprised and maybe even a little guilty. Like, not even he wanted me to see this. I open my mouth. But then any will to smooth over the situation, somehow make a joke of it even, leaves me. With both their eyes on me, I turn and almost run to the door, having to drop the flowers on the ground to press the panel. Somehow I feel even worse than I had when I left the throne room in disgrace after the dance. The door slides open, and the next thing I know, I'm jogging out into the hall. As I do, I hear Amicus struggling for words. Marco, wait! There's some rustling sounds, followed by a yelp from Neferu before the door slides shut and the only sounds are my echoing footsteps. I'm not sure where I'm going, I just know that I need to get as far as I can from that situation. What I just saw is only now sinking in, and so is the hurt. What the fuck? That fucking wolf tells me he's in love with me, or at least interested in me, and the next thing I know he's fucking that jackal? What the fuck? I guess I'm more angry than hurt. I must have looked like such an idiot standing there while one of them was getting railed. And to walk in on that moment. Neferu had been so clearly into it, and Amicus looked so mean and aggressive. The whole thing was just awful. Well, awful to walk in on unexpectedly. In another context, my vision blurs for a moment, but I refuse to let myself cry over something that wasn't even going to be serious. I was going to offer Amicus that stupid fling, and that was it. He wasn't obligated to have only eyes for me. In fact, I knew he was into Neferu. We'd already discussed it. So this is fine. This was expected. Actually, I wasn't even expecting anything. No, the reason I'm so embarrassed and feel like shit right now is because I walked in on two alien dogs butt fucking. That was weird and messed up, and I need to collect my thoughts for a moment. That's when I realized I don't really know where I am in the palace. Most of the hallways look the same, and this one is no exception, though I know I'm deeper in than I've been before. Marco! Amicus's footsteps pound against the floor behind me. I don't know how far away he is, considering the echoing halls can be deceptive, but I immediately take a right into a particularly large set of double doors. Fancy. Water. The room I walk into is full of smells. Good ones, like a garden. The air is cool and fresh even as afternoon light pours in from an opening in the ceiling. All the while, there's a sound of a soft trickling of water from a small fountain in the center of the room. I stand there for a moment, eyes scanning for anyone else that might be here. When I don't see anyone, I move closer to the center of the room, looking around at the flowers and plants as I try to calm my hammering heart. I know Amicus is probably going to find me soon. All he has to do is ask calm. So I fold my arms, trying to look casual, realizing now that it would have just been better for me to hang out in the hall, maybe laugh when Amicus came out. I'd have made a joke and acted like it wasn't a big deal, but it's way too late for that now. Sure enough, the door slides open and Amicus stumbles in his underwear, his fur completely mussed up, chest heaving for breath. Marco, I need to talk about... He doubles over, paws on his knees as he gasps in his air. I cringe as I see my flowers clutched in one of his paws. But I still try to look casual, keeping my arms folded. What? About what you just saw. Don't worry about it. I shrug before busying myself with brushing off my robes so they don't look so dirty. No, I want to explain what happened. You don't need to explain it. It's none of my business. Well, it is. It's definitely not. I snap at the cord. Who you fuck is none of my business. That's all up to you. Don't let me tell you who you can and can't be with. Amicus frowns deeply at me. What? You heard me. I don't want to hear about it. I'm not here for this shit anyway. Here for what? I throw my hands up in frustration. What just happened? For sex or love or whatever the hell it is you guys do. Whatever it is you told me you wanted on the island. I point at the flowers in his paw. I'm just trying to get home. I feel my eyes threatening to water up again, and I stubbornly swallow that down right quick. No, that's not what that was. Please, let me explain. I shake my head. You guys have sex. It's not a big deal. I get it. Humans can be like that too. Amicus takes a step forward, but I take one back. I guess it's just a little fucked up that you confessed your feelings 2 days ago, and then suddenly you're just fucking another guy. This is also ridiculous. Not only the situation I'm in, but the fact that I feel so hurt by the wolf, even though nothing has really happened between us except an alcohol-fueled kiss. Amicus takes another step forward, his paws up, staring wide-eyed at me. That's not what happened. If you'll let me explain, then what did I just see? What you saw, it was more of a transaction than anything. What? Of cum? Amicus chokes in surprise. Well, yes, I guess, but I made a deal with the Chemian. What deal? Well, I'm sure you remember our problems with Cassius. About him wanting to murder me? Yes, that problem. What about it? Well, I did say it wasn't something you should worry about, but like I also said, I'm taking all precautions. Yeah? Yes. So, the wolf pauses. What? I realize now that I should have consulted you on this, but it was my only immediate option. What option? Well, while Cassius might be willing to execute my pet, he wouldn't dare touch the pet of a Chemian. What? The wolf rubs behind his neck with one paw and speaks very quickly. If I were to lose a second trial, I made it so that your ownership would transfer to Neferu. You'd become his pet. I stare at the wolf. This would ensure that Cassius would not dare come after you. If he did, it might upset the very delicate relations we have with the Chemians. A moment of silence passes. So I'd become Nefari's pet. If I somehow lose the trial, yes. I stare at the wolf. Are you okay with that? Amicus. Again with him doing things without even telling me. No conversation, no warning, no consideration. After all this time, he still doesn't see me as an equal. Amicus sees my expression change and quickly jumps in again. It's the best alternative, mainly because the Kemians likely use their own stretch, and Furry would be able to get you home if he had to. So to pay him, he wanted sex and only seemed interested in that. Yes, trust me, I took no emotional pleasure in it. I'm quiet. Don't worry though, I made sure the contract we agreed to ensures that you will not have to be involved in anything like that. In fact, you'd almost be treated like a pharaoh. Amicus grins proudly. I stare at the wolf for a while, suddenly feeling numb. Are you feeling better? His voice takes on a serious tone as he reaches out and pushes a thumb pad across my cheek. The action is intimate, but I turn my head away. We stand awkwardly for a moment, then Amicus holds up the flowers. You draw, please. I shake my head. They were for you. Amicus winces. I thought so. Were you going to ask me? I feel my face getting hot. Yeah. But now, I'm suddenly enveloped in a very tight hug. God, that was the absolute worst moment for you to walk in. I'm sorry. I stand there limp, just letting the wolf hug me. Finally, Amicus steps back, holding the slightly wilted flowers as he stares at them. I hope after that you're still considering. I sigh and shake my head, to which Amicus's ears fall. I'm just a stupid primate to you, aren't I? What? I told you before to just talk to me. If you're planning something that involves me, why couldn't you have at least given me a warning? Especially for something like this. You what? It was sudden, and I thought the idea might hurt you after what happened on the island. No shit! So you went behind my back. I know sometimes you don't even think, but you knew this would hurt. No, I've been so busy. Not to mention negotiating these things is complicated. I'm just trying to do what's best for you. Without really thinking about me, or how I might feel about any of this, I'm always thinking about you. Every damn hour of the day. And this is on top of the trials. Believe it or not, Marco, I'm stretched a bit thin, and it would be helpful if you could work with me. Work with you how? Let you manipulate me into becoming your boyfriend, then want you fuck another guy so I can become his slave instead? I've been pretending, but now it could actually become official. I can't stop the words from spilling out of my mouth, wanting to hurt the wolf just as much as he hurt me. The wolf stares at me. Then Amicus's hackles rise, but instead of instilling any sort of fear in me like it normally would, I feel satisfaction. Marco, I will not have you accusing me of such a thing. I was more honest with you on the island than I have been with anyone in years. But not about what just happened with Neferu. But you think I owe you celibacy? We're not dating, and you refuse to do anything with me. It may come as a surprise to you, but even in times like these, I have needs. So you did want it. Amicus looks about ready to explode, and for a moment, he just stands there in silence, practically shaking. He opens his mouth, and instead of shouting I expect, it's almost a whisper. I may not know how things work on Earth, but you know how they work on Adastra. You said yourself that these matters are casual. What happened with the jackal means nothing to me. You mean so much to me, which is why I did it to keep you safe. I shake my head. Well, seeing what happened in the bedroom hurt, it's really only the tip of the iceberg with what's wrong with all this. If you actually cared about me, you'd care about what I want. You keep telling me how smart I am, but here we are again with you doing stuff without any of my input because you think I'm too stupid to understand. No. You know, you wolves are all the same. We're all just stupid barbarians to you. You don't treat me as an equal. You look down on me, and why the fuck would I want to be with someone like that? That is not even... You win this. You just win your stupid ass trial. Just win your stupid trial and send me home. If you don't, just blast my stupid ape ass off into space. I don't want to be here anymore. I turn, heading for the door. Wait, please! Whatever he was going to say suddenly cuts off as I hear a loud thud. I don't look back to see what he kicked or punched. Instead, I head out into the hall, not sure at all of where I'm going. I just know that I hate everything about what just happened. For a while, I just wander. I end up pacing the halls of the palace before going outside to sit in the gardens. I don't see anyone. It's weirdly calm outside, especially considering that the Emperor could be decided tomorrow. I wonder how things are in the city, in the rest of the Empire. I look out toward the faint city skyline, glinting gently in the afternoon light. Amicus doesn't come after me. Should he? I'd said such horrible things to him, but even now, I feel like I had to say them. I'm tired of being treated like an actual pet, and now that I might actually become one, still, I kind of wish he did come after me again. I do believe that he was only trying to protect me, that he thought what he was doing was the only way to do that. But after everything on the beach, after I've already told him to just keep me in the loop, honestly, if he'd asked me about it first, even just told me about it, I'd probably have been okay with it. Sure, maybe a little jealous, but okay. I realize that a lot of this anger is because I just feel betrayed. And I feel that way because I really, really like Amicus. I'd expect him to treat me better after everything. The late afternoon heat is making me sweat, but instead of going inside, I just move under some shade. After a while, I lay back on the bench I'm sitting on, drifting off to sleep. Okay, we're gonna leave off here for tonight. Okay, serious question real quick. This video, even though not a whole lot was said about it, like a quick question. Should I age restrict this stream when I upload it to YouTube? Like, should I age restrict it? Because, like, I haven't been age restricting the other streams, but I feel like this one might need to be age restricted. Yeah, on the actual version of it. On the actual game, like not the modded version that I've set up here, it's pretty bad. Okay, so take that as I'm not going to age restrict it, but if YouTube, like, I don't know. Anyways, stay safe and have a good night.